Welcome back, golf fans. I'm Chris Terrell. I'm here for dailyfantasysportsrankings.com, bringing you the first Daily Fantasy PGA video of the year. I'm going to go over a couple of my top picks for the tournament, but more importantly, I'm going to go over how to open my daily cheat sheet, as well as some of the options in it, how to use them, how to make your own models, how to create your own cheat sheet, the editable version. So let's get things started. We'll go to my article on dfsr.com. It's right now on the home page. You can find it in the very first paragraph here in the opening DFS PGA cheat sheet, as well as down at the bottom of the article in the comments section. You can also click on the document there as well. And then what that's going to do is it's going to open a Google document for you. It's going to be view only to start with. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click on File, make a copy, name it whatever you want, and click OK. It's going to open another version. It will be editable, and what that's going to allow you to do is, first of all, sort columns. So if you wanted to, by default it's sorted by DraftKings dollars, so if you wanted to sort by FanDuel salary, what you could do is go into this column D, click on any cell there, any salary, go up to data, click on sort sheet by column Z to A, and it's going to sort by FanDuel salary. You can do that for any column in the sheet. For instance, another example would be if you're looking at strokes gained approach this week, which is one of my top stats. You can also go click on anywhere in column L, click on data, sort Z to A again. That's going to sort the players by their strokes gained approach. One thing to start out with here, I'm just going to go over what each of these columns at the top mean. I got them color coded. So in gray here we've got the player's name, DraftKings and FanDuel salary. We've got odds, official world golf ranking. We've also got DraftKings points per tournament on the last 5 and the last 10 tournaments. Now those are PGA Tour tournaments only, not counting any European Tour events that some of the players may have played in. This will be more noticeable once we get into the thick of the season, where there's a lot of players from the European Tour coming over and playing. That's something you'll kind of have to research yourself if there's a lot of European Tour players in the field. Next up, we've got the green heading, and what those are the raw stats. Each stat is shown here in row 2, like strokes gained approach. All the strokes gains are here, and then we got putting stats, off the tee stats, approach stats, scoring stats, etc. So what I mean by raw stats is proximity is going to be by distance, greens in regulation is a percentage, same with driving accuracy, good drive percentage, driving distance is of course a distance in yards. Putting stats are also in inches. Sorry, those are percentages as well. Over into the strokes gained, that's pretty explanatory. And then what we do with those raw stats so that we can make a model to go by each week is over in the orange section is where we rank each one of those stats. So I sorted by strokes gained approach. So as you can see here, Jordan Spieth, who had the highest strokes gained approach, is going to be ranked 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. Now those rankings are not on tour, but those rankings are per player in the field. So as you'll see this week, it's 1 to 34. Most weeks we've got 156 players. Now again, when it comes to the stats over here in green, one more thing I want to mention is that they are a combination of last year's stats and this year's stats. So right now, early in the season, I've got about 90% weight currently on last year's stats with 10% weight on this year's stats. So a lot of the players that maybe haven't played yet in the fall season, they're going to have all 100% last year's stats. And as the season moves on, we get more data in the 2018 season, those stats will be updated, probably going to be moving, after the first 4 or 5 turns, we're going to be moving into about a 70% 2018 and a 30% 2017. It's all going to depend on how many players we get in the field each week. But they will be updated, and I will let you know as I keep those updated. So if you're looking at these stats and trying to compare them to PGAtour.com, almost all the players are not going to match up correctly. So the next thing you can do once you create your own copy of the cheat sheet is play around with a model. So this week, as you can see in the orange section above each of the stats, or below the name of the stats but above the ranks, I've got numbers here, and they add up to 100, so 100% of course, and that is my model for the week for stats. So for instance, I've got 20% weight on strokes gained approach, 15 on strokes gained putting, 5% on putting avoidance, 10% on proximity, so that kind of puts like a 30% weight on a player's approach shots. They're very big greens this week, so I wanted to add in some proximity because I think players that are going to be able to consistently get the ball closer to the pin, not just hitting the green, are going to fare a little bit better and be able to score. Par 4 average, par 5, 5%, that's 20% on par 4. And then going over a little bit more, we've got 25% on birdie or better percentage. So that totals 100 here, and that's what that number is. And then this would be your stats rank in column CS. That is where it's going to rank the players based on that stats model. So if you wanted to see who was the best out of the stats model, if you just want to look at stats this week, click anywhere in that CS, go to data, sort A to Z because you want lowest to highest. And you'll see that Jordan Spieth #1, Thomas, Fowler, Johnson, Matsuyama, they're ranked, and of course we got Brendan Steele. He's in there all the way, 1 through 6 in your stats ranks. So then the next thing that I do is we'll slide back over here and we'll look at the blue column. That's your course history, last 5 years on the particular course. And I've also got an average finish for them there on the course history. And then we've got current form as the players' last 5 tournaments on the PGA Tour with their average finish as well. Also, we're looking at the DK point average for the last 5 tournaments, so that when we come back over here to our overall rankings, we've got our stats rank, history rank, form rank, and DraftKings points last 5 tournaments rank. I will then put a weight on them, also adding up to 100%. So this week I've got 40% on stats, 30% on course history, and then a combined 30% on form, as well as DraftKings points, which is very important, over the last 5 tournaments. And then that spits out an overall ranking in column CX as well as column A, so it's visible on both sides, overall players rank. So if we go and we sort that, we click on anywhere in column CX or A, go up to data, sort sheet A to Z, it's going to give us a rank of the players based on this model here. So what you can do now that you've got an editable version of this cheat sheet is you can go and change around any of these stats. So if you want to take less weight on strokes gained approach, maybe put some on strokes gained off the tee, pretty much any of these stats you can put a number in here. I really try and keep it to so that it adds up to 100 here. What that's going to do is that's going to change the ranking, the weighted rank here in CR, and also the rank in CS. Also, if you feel that history is a little more important than stats, you want to flip those around, maybe put 40 here, 30 here, or maybe because, for instance, we're jumping into the new season, some players have been on layoff, you want to put a little bit less rank on DraftKings points last 5 tournaments and form. We'll take that down. We'll say put 50 there, 40 there. As you can see, it's changed up the overall ranks here, so you can go and you can sort that again, and it's going to give you the rank. One thing to pay attention to a little bit, some players you're going to find maybe don't rank very high in the rankings. They're very good players. You think you want to pick them this week, or maybe they're in my article, maybe they're in other people's article, and you're wondering why they're ranked maybe farther down the list. What happens is, if a player does not have any course history, possibly no current form, or stats on the PGA Tour, we'll find that once some European player tours start coming over, some rookie players get in there, what happens is they automatically get ranked to dead last in that model. So for instance, you see here Cameron Smith, Russell Henley, Ryan Armour, they've never played here. Over the last 5 years, they've actually never played here at all at the Plantation course, so they automatically get 50 ranked there, which puts them in last. So when you jump over here and you look at the overall ranks, they're ranked 21st, tied for 21st in course history. That's going to drag them down a little bit, even though they're good players. So that's something you just really have to pay attention to if a player's ranked lower. Find out why. Do they have course history there? Do they have stats on the PGA Tour? If they don't, that's probably why they got ranked down a bit. Another thing on the cheat sheet that I've got on here to kind of help you out, a little snapshot of the course itself. This week I thought it was important to list the par 4s because there are 5 par 4s out of the 11 that fall between 350 and 400 yards. Shows the holes, the lengths, the par, that sort of stuff. This is the DK point averages per player, not really important unless you want to see season average and stuff like that, but it's just there for viewing if you want to look at any player. And of course, to find any player, you can hit Control F while you're in the Google Sheet, and you can just search a player's name. So if you're looking for Spieth, for instance, type it in, and there's Jordan Spieth last 10, last 5, and season average of DraftKings points. I pull the course history from this last 5 years results tab. So here I've got, of course, the last 5 years. We've got the player name, we've got what place he finished, and also his score. So going down, we've got 30, 32, 31 last year. We've got withdrawals on there. And what you're going to see once we get into the Sony Open with the full field event is you're going to see players that got cut and stuff like that as well. It'll be on there too. And not only do I show when we're looking at course history, and you'll notice this next week for the Sony Open as well, with course history, same with current form, is that I don't just show a missed cut, but I want to dig a little bit deeper to get a better average, and I actually have their place. So there's obviously a big difference in missing the cut by a stroke and finishing, say, it's usually 70 in ties that make this. So if you finish 72nd, there's a big difference in that and finishing dead last. So that's kind of why I break it down and show you place. Like, for instance, here we've got Austin Cook 5 tournaments ago. He finished 103rd. So obviously he missed the cut, but he finished 103rd. So he was probably, if you were to go back here and look at the last 5 years' results or current form, go look at his thing, you probably see that he probably shot 2 or 3 strokes behind the cut kind of thing, maybe even 4 in that instance. So something to pay attention to there as well when you're doing research. Another one that sticks out would be DA points. 2 of his last 3 turns, he's finished outside 140th out of probably around about 156 players. So kind of big there when you're analyzing players and their form, as well as their course history on full field events especially. Another feature of the cheat sheet that I got here is in the gray as well. DraftKings rank, FanDuel rank, and then odds rank. So kind of one thing that you can kind of point out here is that Kyle Stanley, for me, I wrote him up in the article. He's 24th in DraftKings pricing, 20th in FanDuel pricing, but he's 19th in odds. So that gives him a +5 in the DraftKings to odds differential. So that's kind of a bonus there. I also color coded him to green's good, red's bad kind of thing. One that stands out for FanDuel would be Cameron Smith. He's 23rd in FanDuel pricing, but he's 14th in odds right now. So he gets a +9 in that area. So that's kind of if you're looking for value when looking at Vegas odds versus FanDuel and DraftKings salary. Another one here is on the very bottom is the 2016 to 2014. Actually, now it's 2017 to 2013 tournament scoring stats. So what it shows is hole by hole, the yardages, the average score that year, how many eagles, how many birdies, pars, bogeys, double bogeys, and others they show, and then kind of for that hole what the average score is. So as you can see, the par 5 fifth at the Plantation course here has been the easiest hole, followed by the par 5 ninth, and the par 5 18th, and the par 5 15th. So you can kind of see which holes are good, are scoring holes, which ones aren't. And then, of course, here we've got total number of birdies for par 3s, 4s, and 5s. And I kind of look at that when I'm determining whether I want to look at par 4 scoring or par 5 scoring. And then, like I said, I've got the last 5 years' results on there as well. So going back to the cheat sheet, that's how to make your models and stuff like that. So normally what I do is I will kind of take a snapshot and I'll look at the guys that rank 1 through 10, 1 through 20. But then I'll also look at their salaries to find values. Like here we got Brendan Steele at 7,400 on DraftKings. He falls number 7 in my model. 8,400 Kevin Kistner falls 8th. And then I'll just kind of scroll over and see why they rank high, where they stand out. Like for Kevin Kistner, for me this week, I wrote him up as well. He finished 9th here in 2016. He's coming in with some momentum with a 3rd and 4th in his last 2 tournaments. And looking at his stats, he's good around the green, he's good putting. We scroll over a little bit more. He's 6th in proximity, he's 5th in par 4 scoring, and those are some of the things that I'm really looking at this week. So, and then of course, if you're just building specific DraftKings lineups, so I'll do here, like I said, I'll go and I'll sort high to low when looking at DraftKings salary. And then you can also compare to the overall weighted rank as well. Like Jon Rahm falls down the list a little bit this week. Now, that's one that kind of stands out to me because, Jon Rahm's a really good golfer. Why is he ranked 12th? Well, if you slide over, what you can see is he's the first time here at the Plantation course, so he's automatically a 50. That's going to drag down his overall model score. So if you were to come over here and possibly put like course history and go 0, and then click out of there, you see Jon Rahm automatically jumps up to 7th. So that's one thing to pay attention to, like I mentioned earlier. And you're going to notice that even more once it comes to full field events. You're going to see some guys up at the top here, really good golfers that are possibly ranking, you know, in the 60s, 70s, and that's just because usually they get a combination of Henrik Stenson's one, who usually doesn't qualify for PGA Tour stats, so he's automatically going to be ranked down on that side of things. And then, you know, if he goes to a course that he doesn't have any course history at all over the last 5 years, that's going to be double bad for him, because he's going to be ranked, you know, last in that. So that's one thing to pay attention to see if it's actually a real ranking or not. For a lot of guys like Stenson and that do play a lot on the PGA Tour, but not quite enough to fall in the ranks, I'll go in and I'll manually enter on most weeks those guys into their stats columns here, just by going off PGA Tour, even though they're don't have enough rounds to actually qualify on the PGA Tour stats. They do show their actual raw stats, and I can plug those in just to get their rankings to help out with the overall model. So that's about it for this video. If you want to check out my top picks, definitely head over to my article. What I do each week is I go over the course, and some of the sites that I use, I just want to mention before we go here. I wrote it up here that 3 sites that I use very prominently to help me come up with my own model, come up with my top picks, looking and breaking down the course. And ownership is Fantasy National Golf Club. Very great site. You should head over and sign up. They got so many tools and they're always updating. Really help a guy out each week if you're playing and you're really into fantasy golf. Future of Fantasy, I love. You can see player quotes about the course, so it really helps you narrow down what stats you want to look at, what's important here, as said by some of the players that play there quite a bit. Also, he goes through correlated courses. If it's a short course, a driver heavy course, maybe a less than driver course, goes over wind players, that sort of thing. Really breaks it down good there. And then Fanshare Sports I use, really awesome site for breaking down who's getting talked about, who isn't getting talked about, what stats are being talked about, which ones aren't, seeing how, you know, players being tagged and coming up with ownership projections. You know, if you want to come up with your own ownership projections, they also come up with, they have their own ownership projections that you can use as well, and that goes the same for Fantasy National Golf Club. So for figuring out ownership for GPP, if you're a GPP player, both those sites combined really help out in picking. You know, if you want to pick out a diamond in the rough that may be lower owned, shows up high on my cheat sheet or theirs, make a good play. And then what I do is I list my top stats here, and they're the same stats as I got in my model, and then I go over 2 picks each week for course history. This week it's Matsuyama and Jordan Spieth, and then I go over my top plays when it comes to current form. That's Cameron Smith and Kevin Kisner. And then finally I go over 2 players that are you know, showing up in my stats model each week. And then what I'm going to start doing once we get into the full field event is I will have a section on here dedicated to Fanshare Sports and kind of breaking down the tags in each salary. So the $10K plus, the $8,000-$9,000 range, and the $7,000 and less range. And just trying to pick out a couple players that aren't being talked about very much that make good pivots for GPP plays off some of maybe the more popular plays. So you're going to see that next week at the Sony Open. Finally, if you have any questions for me at all, you can hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_Bombs9. You can comment in the YouTube videos, or you can go into the article and you can post your comments here. And finally, you can jump into the member chat room here at DFSR.com. I'm in there most of the days. Wednesday nights, I'm going to try and be in there for a couple hours, getting ready for lineup lock and while I'm setting my lineups and stuff like that. So you can get in there and chat with me there. That pretty much wraps up the video for this week. Next week I'm going to get into a little more breaking down each tier and some of my top picks for each tier. And like I said, you can comment or ask me any questions you want. Thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for reading the articles and supporting me over the PGA Tour season. And good luck, everybody. Let's have a great 2018 season.